For Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. I just want to welcome everyone to the meeting. We have great turnout tonight. Lots of great content to get through today. Just a general reminder, we have plenty of time set aside for public comment on agenda items and non-agenda items. We do want to make sure that because this is a business meeting, we have a lot to get through, that the comment from public is limited to those two sections, both the non-agenda items and agenda items. And we will get to that in the agenda itself. We continue to see good news on the rates of infection relative to the Omicron variant and this pandemic we're living in. So very hopeful we will get to a good position, both as a district and as a country, on how we're managing through the pandemic. We do not have the health and safety plan on the agenda tonight. It has come up in conversation quite a bit, and I do anticipate we'll have some comments at the end. So I appreciate everyone being here for that. With that, we can go ahead and kick things off with the most important part, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, for a reading of the mission statement, Dr. Etlin, could you share that with us?
The mission of the School District of Springfield Township is to educate and develop all students as learners and citizens who are high achieving, resilient, and responsible in a changing global community.
All right, Ms. Green, let's do roll call.
Mr. Needleman.
Here.
Mr. DeFranco.
Here.
Dr. Etlin. Ms. Green. Mrs. Hubley.
Here.
Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski.
Here.
Dr. Tarataski. Mr. Bedard.
Here. Announcements. The board, at its discretion, may videotape all or any portion of the public board meetings subject to the limitations set forth in policy 006.2, broadcasting of meetings. Board meetings will be broadcast on Friday afternoon following the board meeting. We're going to head into reports and information, and from our EEHSP, STS, HSP, MPA, I believe Kelly King is here. Ms. King, how are you? Good.
For Reeves, so that I don't miss any of the important info we have to share. I'm here on behalf of the district parent groups to provide an update to the board. The secondary HSP was proud to fund 4 mini grants totaling $1,258. The awarded mini grants are as follows. Chuck Gottesman was awarded percussion instruments totaling $313. Brian Picknally was awarded a portable wireless Bluetooth party speaker that will be used during gym and special school events. The speaker cost $499. Bridget McDade was awarded 3 Doodler Create and Learn pen sets. Those totaled $299. And Sarah Bowers was awarded STEM support items totaling $145. The secondary HSP is grateful for Ms. Green, the district's business administrator, in assisting the secondary HSP in ordering these approved items. Tomorrow night, Wednesday, February 16th at 7 p.m., the secondary HSP is hosting a special Zoom presentation on Be Smart Gun Safety. This is a program that focuses on gun safety in the home, recognizing the role of guns in suicide, and responsible behavior around guns in the home. In attendance, we'll have guest speakers, Jessica from Be Smart, principals Mr. Fuller and Dr. Rittenhouse, Dr. Yannicone, Mr. Steve Chinta, the head of the district security, and Chief Pitkow, the Springfield Township Police Chief. The elementary and secondary staff and parents are invited to attend this presentation. Registration is required and is limited to 100 people. A link was posted on the EHSP and the SDS HSP Facebook pages, as well as included in the past couple of email blasts from the schools. We also have an update tonight from the Multicultural Parents Association. As of tonight's meeting, funds from last year's book drive hosted by the EEHSP and the MPA have been used to donate over 45 texts to 3 of our schools. In continuation of these efforts, one of the Springfield students is hard at work during an independent study curating a list of more titles to build upon the anti-racist representative libraries within our schools. Some of the books donated include works from Brandy Colbert, an award-winning author who will be visiting our high school students this spring. Our elementary schools have also received copies of the books Born on the Water by author Nicole Hannah-Jones, a fantastic children's book that was highlighted just last week during a student and family read aloud event in the Erdenheim Library. The MPA invites you to join us during our Black History program next Thursday, February 24th at 6:30 p.m. This event will be live streamed and a link for viewing will be sent closer to the event. Also, the MPA invites you to join us during our next meeting, Thursday, March 3rd at 6 p.m., also via Zoom, where we'll be discussing in detail the podcast Nice White Parents. More details will be forthcoming on each of the schools' respective email blasts for these events. We also encourage anyone interested in joining MPA to email us at mpaspringfield@gmail.com. That way you can request joining our email listing and receiving updates on all of our events. Thank you very much for your time and providing this update.
Awesome. Thank you. Very great update. Awesome work that the MPA and homeschool partnerships are doing. Awesome mini grants, the gun safety tomorrow night and the MPA event next week are all to be attended. All right, our next is our student report from Ms. Madison Dunlap.
Hi, everyone. This month at Enfield, they're celebrating Black History Month around the theme of Kumbh. More information about their project will be shared at next month's meeting. Yesterday, they celebrated Valentine's Day. Today, they celebrated the 100th day of school by doing all different activities that focused on the number 100. On 2/22/2022, the first grade will be making a time capsule to be opened on 3/3/33 in their senior year. At Erdenheim, during the month of January, all students participated in a gratitude challenge. Each student in every class had to take it upon themselves to show different forms of gratitude, and the class with the most submissions were able to select a charity for Dr. McLaurin and Mrs. Mack to donate to. The winning class was Mrs. Meyer's class with a total of 560 submissions. Erdenheim treated their nurses for School Nurses Weeks with card, flowers, and other special gifts to thank them. In honor of Black History Month, the students and staff learned about the school community, honoring the achievements made by African Americans throughout American history. Over at the middle school, the Multicultural Student Club is preparing for the DVCE conference. They also had candygrams for sale for Valentine's Day. They are doing the Gertrude Hawk virtual chocolate fundraiser until March 13th, so make sure to get your orders in. The Service Club recently finished up a coat and sock drive that was very successful. And the school-wide spelling bee has just finished, and the first place winner was an 8th grader named Cody Natali, who will be advancing to the Bucksmont Regional Spelling Bee in March. Over at the high school, VOE had a Black History Month brunch on the 5th. Student Council had a fundraiser at Mod Pizza on the 10th. Unified Bocce had a tournament on the 9th and another one today. And congratulations to the girls and boys swimming for winning the Suburban 1 championship. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. All right, we have several several committee updates. I think we almost hit all of our committees this past session. So we're going to start with the Property Committee meeting report from Ms. Slapinski.
I just want to clarify, there was a policy before me, but I can go and then.
Oh, did I hit?
No
Oh,
problem.
my bad. I did go out of order. That is
No
my fault.
problem.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, we'll go backwards the next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we held a property committee meeting on Thursday, February 3rd. It was Zoom meeting at 8 a.m. And during that meeting, we discussed capital projects. As always, Mr. Thorne provided a very detailed list of our projects and talked us through them by priority. The projects included security upgrades, roof replacements, painting, new wayfinding signage, concrete sidewalk replacement, parking lot seal coating, and energy efficiency upgrades. We also spent a good deal of time discussing the bus garage structural evaluation. The bus garage was damaged in the storms and flooding we had in the last couple months. So we needed to take a look at that building. The conclusions of the report were two options. One was to stay at the existing site and perform suggested extensive renovations at an estimated cost of 2 to 4 million, or perform minimal repairs, including the roof replacement, at an estimated cost of 500,000, and consider looking for a new site. A land acquisition and new facility would be estimated at 10 to 15 million. That conversation will be ongoing as Mr. Thorne puts together information and continues to present to the committee recommendations and where we are with that. The Enfield Athletic Field project, the demolition has started. It started on February 1st. The demolition is expected to take 2 months, weather permitting. Construction of the new fields begins on or about the first week of April 2022. And our anticipated project completion date is October of 2022. The school district is currently working with the township to find alternative fields for our middle school softball programs this spring, as those fields won't be ready for the season. We then moved on to take a look at stadium lighting use. We have a current agreement with the neighbors on Fraser Road near the stadium about times when the lighting will be used. The district does annually review our school athletic events as well as outsider user groups, permitting requests for spectator events. We do limit the number of events accordingly. Outside user groups using the stadium in the evenings has increased since the recent renovations, but they are typically considered non-spectator events because of the limited number of attendees. We also took a look at community use of the track. The school district is committed to providing as much community use opportunities of the athletic track in the stadium as possible. The hours and days for community use will be adjusted accordingly when school is in session and over summer break, and security is provided at all times when the public is using the track. In our property committee discussion, we talked about when those hours are, what would be an option to post when those hours are. And we also did discuss the lighting. We had several members of the public attend the meeting with concerns about the lighting, as we've had the lights on in the early morning and in the evening during the winter darkness hours, causing some concern about light pollution. And the facilities department is going to go back and take a look at that and see when the lights are on in the dark, how much it's being used, and then adjust the lighting accordingly. And that is all. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving backwards in the agenda, we'll go to item number 3, policy committee meeting report from Mr. Needleman.
Thank you, Mr. Bedard. I don't have to speak backwards, do I?
No,
Okay.
no, you're good. You're good.
Speak clearly. I'll be, thank you, Mr. Bedard. I'll be brief. I know we've got a lot to get to. In terms of our policy committee meeting, we met a couple weeks ago. We're continuing our review of the policies as recommended by, and the revisions and changes there too, as recommended by the Pennsylvania School Boards Association. As you know, we've made it through the 000s. We're nearing the 200, so we're making pretty good progress. Without getting into the specifics, I did want to reiterate a point that came up at the meeting, and as kind of a preview for the public and for the board as well, that part of the overall revisions that are being done is to consolidate some of the policy language that's repetitive in one policy and then it's found in another. So while it may look like some language is being deleted and gotten rid of, it's not. That's not the intent. The intent is to consolidate and make smoother and better, hopefully. So, and that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Good, any questions? Thank you. All right, I'm back on track. Subject number 5, Academic Affairs Committee meeting report from Dr. Atlin.
Okay. The Academic Affairs Committee met on February 7th, and we discussed multiple topics. First, the profile of a graduate. Committee several years ago across all buildings and staffing groups worked to create a district profile of a graduate. Our graduates should have skills as critical thinkers, effective communicators, creative problem solvers, self-motivated learners, and global citizens. This image will be central in each building to serve as a guidepost in curriculum, instruction, and overall programming for district students. Also discussed was teacher professional learning, or FLEX. 3 exchange days are part of the district calendar. These are days in which professional staff members can exchange professional learning hours outside the regular workday for time earned on these calendar days. This year, the program allows staff members to create personalized pathways toward professional learning based on their own individual needs and areas of interest. This year, teachers have participated in required induction, new teacher orientation, created professional learning groups, engaged in online national conferences or institutes, and done professional reading or learning in their discipline or area of interest. Advancing district and building goals are addressed through the other teacher professional learning days throughout the calendar. Also discussed curriculum review cycles. As a result of the pandemic and impact to staffing and availability of staff, curriculum revision project timelines have been revised to begin later than expected. We will begin secondary science and ELA during summer of 2022. Elementary science and ELA will begin fall of 2022. Visual art curriculum revision is in process and anticipated to be completed for board review in late spring 2022. Also discussed was academic performance update, winter benchmarking. Progress is viewed in the district through 3 areas: attendance, behavior, social emotional performance, and curricular assessment. Student attendance district-wide averages 94% of students present each day. This number includes the absences resulting from student quarantines throughout the first semester. Student belonging data was also reviewed. District average in grades 4 through 12 is 3.89 on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest sense of belonging, and is consistent with pre-pandemic rates. While student behavior is generally appropriate and positive in all of our district schools, when behavior and discipline emerges, it tends to be based on peer conflicts and social interactions, such as valuing opinions of others and navigating social situations, and adhering to school rules. Overall, these behaviors are often attributed to the interruption of social and group learning over the past 2 years. Continue to offer school-based support through the Student Assistance Program and school-based outpatient, in addition to our own district personnel on the clinical team to respond to student mental health needs. Academic performance was reviewed for K-8, reviewing foundational skills in reading and math based on the STAR 360 winter benchmarks. Reading. At Enfield, nearly 77% of students are reading at or above benchmark level. At Erdenheim, 81% of students are performing at or above benchmark. In the middle school, 64% of students are performing at or above benchmark. Math performance is not specifically evaluated for grades K-1 in the STAR 360 assessment. Across grades 2 to 5, 77% of students are at or above benchmark. Grades 6 to 8, 73% of students are at or above benchmark. The principals shared specific strategies on how they are using this data to work with their faculty to examine appropriate strategies and steps to support students and their continued growth in reading and math skills. Individual student data is reviewed by their teachers and their administrators, and supports are put in place to address targeted needs for those students who have not yet met the benchmarks. At the high school, the data was examined on the pass rate for this fall. For fall 2021, 97.8% of our students passed all of their classes for the fall semester. The FLEX program has afforded teachers and students time to work together to reduce the risk of failure, and the results show that success. Out of 753 students at the high school, 17 students failed one or more classes this fall. The high school team is working closely with these students to ensure appropriate supports are in place going into the spring semester. The spring testing calendar was shared. Preliminary plans for summer programming were also shared at the meeting. The district expects to offer Spartan Academy to students again this fall at no cost to families. The program structure will shift to ensure those students who are not making the expected gains are offered options to provide readiness for the next school year. Full presentation of this plan is available on the district website as a recorded Zoom session. Our next meeting is approximately or somewhere to be around April 25th of 2022. That ends my report. Any questions?
Comprehensive. Any questions?
Thank you.
Dr. Etlin, I'm going to do a motion that you do all the reports.
Okay.
All right. Next up is my personal favorite, the Finance Committee meeting report. Mr. DeFranco.
Okay, the Finance Committee met this past Thursday morning, 8 a.m., February 10th. We had a decent agenda. We discussed the 5-year cybersecurity plan, which is on our agenda for tonight as well. This was presented by Mr. Oliver. In this discussion, we reviewed an increase in cybersecurity risks that the school districts are facing. The plan included security awareness and training, internal, external network testing and assessment, enhanced endpoint protection, multi-factor authentication systems, and immutable backups. The district noted that this contract would include installation and training of current staff along with ongoing consulting services to the district. Funding for the cybersecurity plan is going to come out of a portion of the ARP ESSER funds. This is $407,181. Future licensing costs would be spread over the term and built into the technology department's budget in future years so that we don't have to revote on something like this every 5 years. It'll just become part of their budget. And this is an allowable usage of the ESSER funds as they were designed to help with cybersecurity as with online education and the amount of technology that we've been implementing recently. This is a real need. Also discussed was the district's enrollment study. This has been updated by the Montgomery County Planning Commission, and it's available online. This other item is going to show up on our agenda tonight. This is the 2021-2022 audit engagement. The district is recommending to approve the engagement letter from Bars, Gowie, Ammon, and Frotz LLC. I probably butchered those names. For the 2021-2022 audit in the amount of $16,900. Also an agenda item is a waiver of interest and penalties. The district is recommending a waiver of interest and penalties on the 2020-2021 school property taxes for 2 parcels. It was noted that the school district reviews these requests to validate their legitimacy, basically do an investigation and make sure that the situation needs to be addressed by us and considered. And then finally, we discussed the 2022 budget update and the review of this timeline. So the next phase is on the 25th of this month. Budgets are going to be due from building departments. District buildings and departments will use a zero-based budgeting strategy to develop preliminary budgets. Following that, in April 7th, a review of the budget with the Finance Committee. May 12th, the review of the final budget with the Finance Committee. And then May 16th will be approval of the proposed final budget. Final review of the budget with the Finance Committee will happen on June 9th. And then pending approval on June 21st, we'll have that before the board for a vote. Review of the budget drivers. This is all goes back to the Act 1 index for the 2022-2023 year. It's currently set at 3.4. This is the maximum amount the district can raise property taxes. Historically, Springfield has come in well below the Act 1 index. Maybe well below is not fair. We vary from year to year, but we are typically below the index. The revenue budget is based on historical trends, current economic climate, and external data. A large portion of the district revenues are from local sources, including property and earned income taxes. The expenditure budget is broken out by department and buildings. And it was noted that salaries and benefits are the largest cost driver following debt service and fixed costs. We also briefly went over what potential impact there might be from the recently proposed Governor Wolf budget. While it's not likely to actually be implemented, were it to be implemented, it would be a windfall for Springfield of roughly $908,000 of additional funding from the state government that we don't currently benefit from now. But for our planning purposes, we'll be using numbers from previous years so that we can be realistic and make sure we can count on the money we're considering. And then we actually had a pretty good engagement from the community in this meeting. I think this was the most I'd seen from any of the policy or any of the committee meetings that I've sat in so far with 6 community members. And there was a lot of discussion of universal masking. And then that was the end of the meeting. Any questions? Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think it's a good reminder that all of the committee meetings are open to the public and a great venue to hear a lot of engagement and dialogue and discussion around the topics that we end up voting on at these meetings. So great report, everybody. Appreciate it. Oh gosh, I said the last one was my favorite. I'm sorry, Dr. Yannicka. We'll move on to administrative reports and hear an update from our superintendent, Dr. Yannicka.
Thank you. Each week, I strive to visit each of our schools to see what our students are learning and how our staff is doing. Over the past few weeks during my visits, I was happy to see some really beautiful artwork and schoolwork on the walls of our elementary schools and to meet with students in our superintendent's advisory groups. We continue to meet monthly. Students at Enfield have studied the Olympics, renowned artists, writers, musicians, and leaders as a component of Black History Month studies, and countries around the world as part of their social studies curriculum. At Erdenheim, in the last few weeks, students recently completed their studies of the solar system with artwork on display throughout the halls, and students have also written essays on their favorite aspects of their identity and comparison contrast essays of favorite games, sports, toys, and television shows. I was glad to see they still watch a little television. It's not all streaming. At the middle school, the 8th grade science students are creating Rube Goldberg machines in the library. There's a lot of activity there the last few days I visited. And as Maddie already mentioned, Cody Natali won the school-wide spelling bee with Dominic Gaeta and Wyatt Craig in 2nd and 3rd overall. So good competition there at the middle school. We also had the Montgomery County Athletic Association wrestling tournament. We didn't host it this year, but one of our students, Aaron Kaufman, took 1st place in his division. So very glad to see Aaron doing well. And the service club at the middle school collected 99 coats and 309 pairs of socks for Cradles for Crowns. And yesterday, the student council celebrated Valentine's Day there with candygrams. So it was a fun day at the middle school. At the high school, students completed final exams and the 2nd semester has begun. Today, I had the pleasure of visiting Mr. Kobaz's Glassworks class, where Kenneth Leap was a visiting artist. He really did a phenomenal job with the students, teaching them a variety of techniques in Glassworks. I was also able to watch today's unified bocce match, which was a really close match for our Spartan teams. Just phenomenal competition and great sportsmanship shown by both the Harrigan team and our Springfield Spartans. Also in athletics, our swimming and diving teams last week they each won the league championship. And tonight, our wrestling team is in competition at the league champs. So we're hoping for some good news from them later tonight. Our boys basketball team has made the playoffs and they'll kick off next week. And in indoor track, we've already qualified several athletes for the district finals. In particular, we have some very talented high jumpers and pole vaulters. I'm very grateful to all of our students for their hard work this winter on their mid-year assessments. As Dr. Etlin already mentioned, all of our students K through 12 completed assessments in the last month. I'm very grateful to the students for the commitment to their studies and their active participation in their schooling this winter. I also want to commend the staff for their dedication and professionalism throughout the year, and in particular for their ability to maintain their focus on the growth and achievement of our students, which has led to the strong and overall positive results that Dr. Eklund shared tonight. So we know we still have some work to do, and we'll be working on that in this last third of the school year. Also want to recognize that we had School Counselors Week and School Nurses Appreciation Week in the last month. Recently, our community recognized the contributions of those two groups of professionals who have worked tirelessly to support our students and families. At any time, these individuals work to ensure that students' needs are met and families have the information they need to access resources in the region for mental health, career and educational planning, medical and specialist offices, and many other services. We're grateful to our teams across the district and join in celebrating their commitment to our community. Among the agenda items tonight is the approval of a new Director of Support Services, Dr. Michelle Lutz. Dr. Lutz was selected from among a very talented group of candidates, emerging as the universal favorite across our administrative team, clinical staff representatives, and administrative assistants. Dr. Lutz, who currently serves as the Senior Director of Services in the Upper Moreland School District, received her bachelor's degree in political science from Albright College and began her teaching career in 2004 in the School District of Philadelphia. During her time in Philadelphia, Dr. Lutz taught self-contained learning, emotional and autistic support classrooms in grades K through 12, provided inclusion support for students with autism and life skills, co-taught literacy and math at the middle school level, and served as a teacher leader in the area of special education. In 2006, Dr. Lutz earned her master's degree in special education from Albright. And during this time, Dr. Lutz furthered her experiences by completing the National Board for Teaching certification process and her administrative coursework and certification at Edinburgh University. As an administrator, Dr. Lutz has carried her passion for working with all students into her work. As a principal in the School District of Philadelphia, Dr. Lutz led a K-5 school to increase student achievement and decrease disciplinary referrals as a result of a school-wide plan that focused on providing a literary intervention period for all students, recognition for school attendance, and the use of suspension alternatives. Dr. Lutz joined the Upper Moreland Township School District in 2015 as the supervisor of special education and student services. And during her time in the district, she has earned her doctoral degree in education administration from Gwynedd Mercy University and her superintendent's letter of eligibility. Dr. Lutz is with us tonight in the gallery. We're very pleased to have her selected and to recommend her to you tonight. Exhausted just reading your educational background. And as was mentioned just a few minutes ago, Mr. Bedard just had one other note before we move to our Spartan Spotlight. Since our last meeting on January 18th, each of our board committees have met. We have 4 committees, and I was very appreciative for the reports that the board members provided. I want to remind the public, the committee meetings are held virtually in order to maximize accessibility for the community, and we encourage you to join us if the agenda includes information and items of interest to you. Committee meetings are where the administration brings detailed information to the board members for their consideration, and also where motions for the board's consideration are proposed and moved out of committee to be placed on the interim and regular meeting agendas. There is also an opportunity for public comment on items related to the committee's work. I'd like to remind the community that these meetings are open to everyone, students included, posted on our website, announced in advance, and available on our website for viewing within 48 hours of the meeting. I encourage our community to contact the board or me with any questions about the committee meeting agendas, and we'll be happy to get an answer to you promptly. And finally, for our Spartan Spotlight tonight, we have representatives from the middle school and high school to highlight 2 STEM programs that have experienced great success this winter. Mr. Fuller, let's begin with Dream It, Design It, and then we'll move on to the DECA State Championship team from the high school.
Okay, all right. So every year, the middle school participates in the Dream It, Design It competition, which is a countywide competition that's run by the IU and focuses on the design process and STEM, science, technology, and engineering and mathematics. As a lot of you know, our students at the middle school take STEM every year, and they work with their awesome teacher, Mrs. Nose, who's here with us tonight, along with her students, to talk about their wonderful performance in our Dream It, Design It competition. So Mrs. Nose and our students, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for inviting us to be here tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce our Dream It, Design It competition team. We have Phineas Broussard, Mateo Hackett, Jonah Schaller, Nora Steinbrook, and Tenzin Chuki. I'm going to pass the microphone over to the students who will share a little bit of information about their projects.
Good evening, school board members, administrators, and Springfield Township community. Thank you for inviting us to be here tonight.
In December, our team entered the Dream It, Design It competition hosted by the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. We competed against 12 other teams in a design challenge and won first place.
For the challenge, our team designed the new North American extension of Famwood Park Zoo. We started with 5 categories: animals, attractions, concessions, pathways, and restrooms.
We thought throughout our zoo, we thoughtfully designed attractions for inclusivity that represent our diverse visitors and accommodate a variety of needs to make visiting the zoo a comfortable and enjoyable experience for all.
This includes a variety of languages, braille, gender-neutral bathrooms, mobility accessibility, sensory break rooms, and specific food needs, including vegan options and allergy considerations at concession stands.
The animals we included were bison, wolves, elk, alligators, and a variety of birds.
We also converted a creek into a duck pond with a bridge going across and added a greenhouse that inhabited butterflies, bees, and bugs.
We made some names for our bathrooms, such as the bison bathroom, the wolf washroom, the elk outhouse, and the alligator banyo.
Thank you for your time and acknowledgement. We are honored to share our experience with you tonight. We enjoyed this learning opportunity and are excited to see what will come next.
Good evening, everybody. For those that don't know me, I'm Chuck Rittenhouse. I'm the principal of the high school. And under STEM is mathematics, and nested under mathematics is business education. Bell Levin classroom's right around the corner here. He's a wonderful business education teacher here. He's going to talk about the DECA program, DECA. You can check it out at deca.org. And if you log on, you see Maximize Your Momentum. It's preparing emerging leaders and entrepreneurs to be college and career ready. And this is a new organization here, and I'll hand it over to Bill.
And thank you very much for offering us this opportunity to share this very exciting initiative. I'm joined by Julian Kasman-Asnar, who's one of our co-presidents, and Jack Sharp, who's one of our club vice presidents. We started the club this year. It's really an organization with about 3,000 chapters statewide. So we started up in the school this year, and I've just seen a tremendous amount of momentum behind it. There's just been an amazing amount of excitement, and this team has managed to accomplish some pretty incredible things in a very short period of time. So you're not here to listen to me talk. I'm going to hand it over to these guys. Julian's going to just give you a little brief overview about the club in general, and then Jack's going to specifically talk about the very, very exciting week we have ahead competing in the state championship.
Hello, I'm Julian. Thank you for having us. This is our first year in DECA as a chapter. We started with around 60 people, which makes us one of the largest student organizations in the school. We meet every Thursday to discuss topics regarding business and leadership, as well as preparing for competitions such as districts. We did very well in our districts, and 15 of us were selected to go to states, which Jack will explain soon. We were recognized by DECA as one of the largest new chapters in the area, and we also were awarded a mini grant from the HSP. Overall, it was really impressive for a new chapter. We attended conferences run by DECA and the Signature organization at the Wells Fargo Center. We held a bake sale here at the school, and we look forward to inviting guest speakers and holding more fundraisers for charities. We are growing, expect to continue in the upcoming years. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jack Sharp. I'm the vice president. I want to thank you guys again for having us. So states, this is going to be this Wednesday to this Friday in Hershey, PA. We're going to be staying at the Hershey Lodge. I'm not sure if you guys know where that is. But we basically have 15 people, as Julian stated, going to states with us. It's going to be a ton of fun. So on Thursday, we'll be competing in competitions with other schools and students from around the state to win awards in what we call case studies. So these case studies consist of a business problem given to us, and we'll have 10 minutes to come up with a solution to that business problem. Once we have the solution, we'll present it to a business executive, and this business executive will grade us on our overall scale of how well we deliver our solution and our overall business knowledge. So that's the competition part of it. While we're not competing, there are some other things that'll be available to us at states. One of these things is there'll be various business CEOs around the Hershey Lodge from different companies talking to us about business things like marketing and finance. Some examples of this is the Men's Warehouse is going to be there, and they're going to be giving a talk about how to dress for success. And the Kalahari CEO, which is a water park, they're going to be there talking about customer relations. Any of us that win this states will be able to advance to nationals in April. So yeah.
I would just like to thank all the students for being here tonight, and your parents, if they're here as well, for the support you're giving the students to be so successful. I want to thank Dr. Rittenhouse and Mr. Fuller for making sure that we have opportunities for extracurricular activities, and Mr. Levin and Ms. Nosey. I know it's a lot of extra time and effort to be working with the students. I know Mr. Levin, you'll be up there in Hershey with the students later this week, and Ms. Nosey, I think for us to go into a competition and bang out a first place finish is pretty impressive across the county. So I want to congratulate our students on the comprehensive nature of the design and just really appreciate all the effort that went into all the work this year. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you very much. And that concludes my report.
There was a ton that you just went over. So I want to say just 4 things. 1, to the DECA students, good luck in the competition. To the STEM students walking out, that was an incredible project. So thank you for the update. To Dr. Lutz, assuming a positive vote today, congratulations and welcome you to the team. And potentially most importantly, I do want to reiterate the board's appreciation for our school counselors and nurses. So, great job recognizing that incredible group and the work that they're doing to support our students. So awesome updates. Thank you. All right. Give everybody a minute to depart from those updates. Our next agenda item here is public comments on agenda items. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Needleman to just do a little bit of a reminder on how we do this.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Dart. I have the sign-in sheet for agenda items. So we'll go through the sign-in sheet. These are folks who signed up to speak in person on agenda items. And then we have some folks online as well. To the point Mr. Bedard made, I just want to remind everybody of our rules that we follow, which is that everyone who wants to comment on agenda items or later on non-agenda items, and we welcome and encourage everybody to speak. We do want just 1 comment per person though. So we will stick to that. If you hear me make an obnoxious reminder, that's why. With that, I'll turn it over to, I only have one person signed up to speak on an agenda item. It's it's M. Watson. Is Mr. or Miss Watson here? Oh, okay. All right, well, why don't we then go to somebody online while, is it Miss Watson who's in the restroom? Well, Miss Watson, I guess, is in the restroom. The first person I have online is Faye McGorry. Can you hear me? Faye McGorry? Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. McGorry, can you hear us? Is there anything we can do to adjust? Okay, thank you.
I can't hear anybody.
Yeah, Ms. McGorry, I'm going to do a test. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. We can hear you. We're ready.
Okay, great, great. I'll try to make it brief. It's not on the agenda. My main concern, and I understand I'm 44, so I know there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do want to make sure that we follow protocol. So if it's a non-agenda comment, we're going to move you to the end of the meeting.
All right, will do. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll check then to see if Miss Watson is back. Has she rejoined us? Oh, great. All right, Miss Watson, if you want to come forward, you're signed up to speak on an agenda item. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Madeline Watson from Winmore. I have 3 children in the district. I write things down, but usually ends up being pointless. We come here and we try to see if there will be any compromise at all with masks, and they just fall on deaf ears. We talk about science. If you were actually following the science, you would know that children should have been maskless first. The fact that a survey hasn't been done in a very long time to see how students feel about it, how parents feel about it, I think is.
Do you mind if I interrupt you? And I would love to invite you to come back and speak at the end of the meeting because this is a non-agenda item. But we'll make sure you get your full 3 minutes.
Think you called up for an agenda item? I have questions about the broadcasting. I noticed there was a lot of language in there about being able to edit out videos of the board meetings and ending a board meeting if the quorum decides to. I didn't see any more detail on that says like what would count for that. How, like, I know that when I look in meeting agenda documents and meeting minutes, the only thing that is on there are positive things and compliments to the board. Anybody that ever has any comments about anything else is never mentioned. So I just wonder how you plan on editing out your videos if they don't suit you. Because, you know, you're elected here and every single person here is on one side, and masks have been made political. And they're not political. This is about science. My child hasn't seen her teacher's face in 2 years. She's 8 now. She's never seen her teacher's face. My son hides behind his mask in his adolescence. Everybody is going to come in contact with the virus eventually. When are we going to get back to normal? When? At what point do you either admit that there's that you're wrong? Or, I mean, I don't care really if you go to your deathbed in terrible fear, thinking that you're going to die from this any day. But to use our children as pawns is leaving half of the members of this town feeling like there's no point. What's the point of me even sitting up here right now? Because it's just going to be ignored. You don't care about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Next online, I see Angelina Banks. You've got a hand raised? Thanks.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can, we're ready.
Okay, I just had a, thank you. I just had a quick question about a couple of the policies. The first one is policy 103, the discrimination policy, discrimination, harassment affecting students. I just need clarification if you could. So page 4, it says, all incidents that are required by law to be reported to law enforcement and or Childline will be made accordingly. And then on 6, there's a change on page 6 for disciplinary consequences. You've taken out referral to law enforcement officials for students who violate the policy as well as for employees. So can you clarify as to which infractions of the policy require you to contact the police and which infractions that you used to report to police that you will no longer be reporting to police?
Yes, Ms. Banks, this is Jeff Bedard. I'll take this one and say that these are very fair questions. But because this is public comment, what I would suggest, and this is how we handle any questions that come up during this time frame, is being captured in the minutes. The administration will be able to get back with specific commentary around those points that you just asked about. But I'll take it as a comment that you'd like us to clarify those points in the policy. Is that fair?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I would just like to know what you were blanketly reporting because you just were, and now what you're only required to be reporting because that's only required by law versus what you were blanketly requiring. And then also if you could clarify why the change was made, I would appreciate that. And you have my email. It's required to sign up online, so I'd love to have a follow-up via email. That would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, wait, one more. Okay. And then policy 832, educational equity. Just wanted a little bit more clarification regarding like reducing cultural barriers to learning. Like, for example, if, devoutly religious family were to come into this area and, it violated their culture for a woman with her hair showing as the teacher, would the school ask the teacher then to cover their hair to be culturally respectful to this family?
Yeah, we've captured it, Ms. Banks. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, and if I could just jump in, if I could ask everyone in the gallery, please hold outbursts or comments because I want to make sure that we can hear, particularly someone making a comment online. I will address the question, and please, policy committee members, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're voting tonight on first readings, which allows us to actually take input and questions, and we'll make sure that that is addressed in follow-up readings of these policies. Okay. Some are first and some are second. Okay.
Next up, oh, I'm sorry, you're good. Next up, I see Mary Ellen Reeves has her hand raised. Ms. Reeves?
Good evening, Mary Ellen Reeves, 214 Station Avenue. Mr. Bedore, just as a point of clarification, Mr. DeFranco did mention during his recap of the Finance Committee meeting that residents mentioned the unmasking of children. This now has, in fact, become an agenda item due to the fact it was mentioned coinciding with the finance meeting. So to tell anybody in the audience that this is now not an agenda item, it was brought up by the school board. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Reeves. And I would respectfully disagree. However, I think it's a fair call out.
Next online is Sherry. Is it Richard or Richard? I'm not sure which, so forgive me.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We're ready.
Awesome. So my name is Sherry Richard. I'm from East Orland. Also continuing with the mask mandates. As we all know, as of January 17th, Governor Wolf lifted the mask mandate. We need to move to mask optional immediately. As a parent, I shall be responsible to determine what is best for my son's health, not the public education system. We who are wearing masks that are unsanitary, and being forced to wear one for over 6 hours a day is unnatural. My only child is in first grade, so most of his public education in Springfield Township is a complete joke. I need to point out, I am not referencing the teachers. They are doing an amazing job. However, our children's education is suffering. The Springfield Township public school system and school board is failing them. My child is legally entitled to a public education, and I feel like he's in prison. Children get so little time to be young and free. They should be able to be kids, have fun, smile, make friends, learn social skills and cues, breathe fresh air, and not worry about the burden of hiding their emotions behind a mask. Honestly, I'm very disappointed with the school board in general and your website. I cannot find any meeting minutes, videos, and the agenda is usually like nothing. There's nothing there for me. And to hear that you're now editing videos, that's a joke. Our children deserve better. Springfield Township School Board, please do better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Richard. I just want to make note for the minutes that that was a non-agenda item. I did not want to cut off the speaker. So we can move to our final speaker.
Online I see Andrew Call. Got a hand raised? Kale, did I mispronounce your name? Forgive me.
Call, yes, call. This is a non-agenda item. Can you hear me?
Yep. So, Mr. Call, we're going to ask if you could hold that just to the end of the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure how to raise my hand for that, so.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we'll make sure you get your time at the end of the meeting when we get through the business.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't see any more hands raised online, and I believe that completes our agenda list.
All right, very good. Thank you. We are going to move into the business section of the meeting. Item E, approval of minutes. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approves the board minutes from our January 18th, 2022 regular hybrid board meeting. Is there a motion? And a second? Any comments or questions on the minutes?
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Slapinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Approval of Treasurer's Report. Recommend action, the Board of School Directors approves the January 31st, 2022 Treasurer's Report with the attachment, January Treasury Report final. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Very good.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Slapinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Next, Human Resources, Personnel, and HR Contracts. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approves the following personnel as presented in the attachment. Administrative personnel, certified personnel, support personnel, temporary personnel, COVID compensatory services personnel, extra pay for extra responsibilities 2021, 2022, and conference workshop attendance. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Sorry. And a second. Good. Any comments or questions?
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Slapinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Next up is Nyman Associates, Inc. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approves the addendum to the contract with Nyman Associates, Inc. to provide physical therapy and school psychologist services for the district as needed at the rates listed in the attached addendum effective February 3rd, 2022. Is there a motion? And a second. Any comments or questions on this update contract?
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. All right, moving on to our finance updates. The first is our MCIU, that's the Montgomery County Intermediary Unit Membership Services Budget. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approves the 2022-2023 membership services budget for the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit number 23, as approved by the Board of Directors in the amount of $1,854,830, of which the School District of Springfield Township's contribution is $41,661. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Lots of motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions on the MCIU membership budget?
We like movement.
I think it would be valuable, just because it took me a while to get comfortable with understanding what the MCIU does. If we could just hear briefly what our contribution allows in terms of value for the school, for the district.
Thank you. So our membership with the MCIU affords us services for students across the district in a variety of areas. And it includes any program that is specialized for students in high need. And those programs may be located within our own schools, or it may be located in regional schools across the county. I don't know if Dr. Johnston wants to contribute any more to that. You can come to the microphone if you think there's anything else relevant for the board to know.
Everyone. The contribution that you're talking about this evening is for our membership with the IU, which allows us access to some of their professional learning opportunities, as well as access to their member services division. They have a separate section in which we purchase at-cost services like Dr. Yadikon was referencing, special education services for individual students. But these are the member services costs that are run through the collective of the 22 school districts of Montgomery County associated with the IU, of which we pay a portion relative to our size and use.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, any other comments or questions? Great, Ms. Green.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Our next up on finance is the 2021-2022 Audit Engagement. The recommended action is the Board of School Directors approves the engagement letter from Bars, Gowie, Amon, and Frotz LLC to conduct auditing services for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022 in the amount of $16,900. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second? Any comments or questions? Excellent, Ms. Green.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Next on our agenda, subject number 3, waiver of interest and penalties. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approves the waiver of interest and penalties incurred in the 2020-2021 school property taxes for the following parcels: 52-00-07057-057-00-1 in the amount of $487.21, and parcel number 52-00-00493-00-4 in the amount of $1,236.76. Is there a motion? And a second?
Second.
And any comments or questions on these waivers?
I just have one quick question. Mr. Franco, these are the properties you referenced in your report, correct?
Yes,
Just
yes,
for
they are.
everyone's benefit. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. You're good?
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley. Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Also coming from our Finance Committee report is item number 4, the cybersecurity implementation. Recommended action. The Board of School Directors approves the cybersecurity implementation plan, attachments A through G, for a total amount of $407,181 to be funded through ARP ESSER funding. Is there a motion?
Motion.
In a second. Any comments or questions on this item? One thing I do think would be valuable was discussed in the Finance Committee meeting, if we could just underscore why the ESSER funds, which were set up specifically in response to COVID, are a good use of funds for this one-time expense. And then secondly, talk a little bit about the initial investment and then ongoing investments required to support the cybersecurity plan.
Okay, so the 5-year cybersecurity plan is presented by Mr. Oliver, our Director of Instructional Technology and Information Technology. Cybersecurity plan meets with new guidelines with regard to security measures that are required for insurance effective this coming July 1st for the coming school years and beyond, in order to ensure that all of our databases, all of our technology services, all of our programs are properly secured. Mr. Oliver has prepared a 5-year plan to bring us immediately up to speed and then to maintain that over the 4 years that follow. In that plan, we have front-loaded a good deal of the costs in year 1 and allocated ESSER dollars to pay for that. And then we have loaded into Mr. Oliver's budget the maintenance costs for the subsequent 4 years in order to make sure that we don't need an increase in any way in our expenditures in order to cover this. So it'll be covered within Mr. Oliver's budget in years 2 through 5. In year 1, we're able to take advantage of ARP ESSER 3, which we actually just submitted today. It's due March 1st. We just submitted it today. That is a almost $1.9 million budget. And within that, we have this $407,000. There are some requirements with regard to buckets of money. Specifically, you have to spend money in 4 different areas. The first is in learning loss and in the recoup of any learning loss for individual or groups of students. The second is in combating chronic attendance issues. We're very fortunate in that our attendance rates right now are in the mid-90s as they were pre-pandemic. And so that's not a heavy area for us. The third area is in technology and any technological services or facilities related services that were incurred as a result of the pandemic, or things that we are interested in doing as a district that needed to be modified in the midst of the pandemic. And it's in this bucket that we have Mr. Oliver's request for cybersecurity. And then that's also related to our core educational program because we are a 1-to-1 district. And as such, all of our students are using technology every day. This all came about, and I should mention before I forget, the fourth area is mental health. And so we have buckets of money contributing to student educational programs, resources, professional learning, et cetera, in those 4 core areas for ESSER 3. In particular, this particular technology area, one of the things that is really important is that it came out of a shutdown of the Souderton School District for over 75 days several years ago as a result of outside hacking. And when that occurred, there was a lot of discussion across the country because this was happening throughout school districts. We were finding that outside hackers were attacking public school districts for databases, et cetera. And so while Mr. Oliver has continued to maintain the highest levels of security that we can at this time, this will really strengthen us, and it'll provide us a sustainable plan moving forward that'll make sure that we're locked down tight and not subject to outside hacking. I'm going to knock on the closest thing this is to wood. All right. I hope that answers the question.
Does very much. Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the cybersecurity? No? All right.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley. Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Moving on to our policy items in the agenda. First up is policy 006.2, broadcasting of meetings. The recommended action is the Board of School Directors approves the repeal of policy 006.2, broadcasting of meetings. Is there a motion? Motion. In a second.
Second.
And any comments or questions related to this policy?
Can I just ask where this information has been incorporated with regard to the policy?
Yes, it's the next item you're going to see on the agenda, 006 meetings. So according to PSBA, this was redundant.
And if I could comment, it is the one element of our meetings that we actually announce publicly at the beginning of every meeting. So reinforced. Okay. Great, Ms. Green.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley. Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Next up is the 000 policies. Recommended action. The Board of School Directors approves the second reading of the following 000 policies. Policy 006, meetings. Policy 008, civility. Is there a motion? A second. Any comments or questions on the 000 policy? Ms. Green.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley. Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Number 3 of the policies is the 100 policies. Recommended action. The Board of School Directors approves the first reading of the following 100 policies. Policy 103, discrimination, harassment affecting students. Policy 103.1, non-discrimination, qualified students with disabilities. Policy 103.2, non-discrimination in school and classroom practices based on sex. Policy 104, discrimination, harassment affecting staff. Policy 104.2, non-discrimination in employment and contract practices based on sex. Policy 111, lesson plan. Policy 115, career and technical education. Policy 123, interscholastic athletics. Policy 123.1, concussion management. Policy 123.2, sudden cardiac arrest. Policy 127, assessment system. Policy 137, home education programs. Policy 137.1, extracurricular participation by home education. Policy 138, language instruction educational program for English learners. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second? Any comments or questions on the 100 policies?
I would just like to clarify, just to make sure there's clear understanding that this is just for the first reading of these policies, so that any comments that were made or questions, there is plenty of time for them to be addressed before these move forward. Great, thank you for confirming.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, these are our first reading on the 100s. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley. Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Next, the one additional 100 policies. Look at this. And I'm going to just ask my solicitor, our solicitor, the district solicitor, is it okay if I bundle these without reading each line item? There are 46 of these policies and they are published in the agenda. I just want to make sure I can not read them aloud.
You do not need to read all of the policies. You can say as presented in the agenda.
Thank you. Perfect. I'm trying to be kind to everyone in the audience.
And in this meeting.
So for item number 4, 100 policies. These are second reading. So these have been presented in the past. The recommended action here is the Board of School Directors approves the second reading of the following 100 policies as presented in the agenda from policy 100 through policy 146. Is there a motion? And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Do any board members want me to read them all? No?
I just want to say thank you to the policy committee. They've done an awful lot of work here with reviewing all these policies, and thank you.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley. Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Subject 5, policy 116 tutoring. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approves the repeal of policy 116 tutoring. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions on 116?
Just want to confirm that this is being repealed because the content is elsewhere in another policy. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's part of that consolidation that I spoke about before. So it's the subject matter is being addressed in policies later on. So
Thank you. Just wanted.
that's why it's recommended.
All right, any other comments, questions? Ms. Green.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley. Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Subject number 6, the 200 policies specific to admission of students. The Board of School Directors approves the second reading of the following 200 policies. Policy 201, admission of students. Is there a motion? A second. Comments or questions?
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley. Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Subject number 7, 800 policies. Recommended action. The Board of School Directors approves the second reading of the following 800 policies. Policy 815, acceptable use of internet, computers, and network resources. Policy 816, district social media. Policy 824, maintaining professional adult student boundaries, and policy 832, educational equity. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Comments or questions on the second reading? Ms. Green.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley. Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Subject number 8 of the policy committee, the 900 policies. The Board of School Directors approves the first reading of the following 900 policies. 903, public participation in board meetings. Is there a motion? A second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Very good, Ms. Green.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green. Mrs. Hubley. Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Lipinski. Dr. Taratusky. Mr. Bedard.
Aye. Which is a wonderful transition because policy 903, public participation in board meetings allows for public comment of non-agenda items, which is our next item on the agenda, we'll move to public comments. And I will turn it over to Mr. Needleman.
Thank you, Mr. Bedard. Again, we'll go first with the folks who are in attendance, and then we'll go to the folks joining us online. First up for the non-agenda items, and again, I just want to reiterate what we talked about before. We're going to limit speaking to 3 minutes per person and 1 comment per person, or 1 turn on the wheel, so to speak. With that, Carolyn Palmer, if you're here, please come on. And if you could, please just let us know where you live in the township.
Okay. 518 Filbert.
Thank you.
All right. This is my first time here. So I was unaware. I thought it was more relaxed and, conversational, like problem solving type of deal. So I just prepared something to say since it's not like conversational. I really want to figure out what the plan is here. Like, are kids just going to be masked indefinitely? Is that what it is? This virus is across the entire globe. Like, there's all different variants. Like, are we just masking for the rest of our lives? We have 1 life to live. All right. That wasn't in my speech, but here. I fear sending my child to this school due to his speech issues related to autism. Signed up to go in September. So my husband and I are really just asking ourselves, we literally moved here for this district, bought a house here for your district. Now we're presented with this huge challenge and you're not helping us out. You're not helping us out in any way. It's just like talking to a brick wall. His development has been impeded by these masks. How can a speech therapist effectively teach a child with autism how to speak if this is covered up? That's his issue. That's his challenge. How does he get over that hurdle? He has said some words and he can talk somewhat, but it's the social issue that's the issue. Like, how do we address this? We got to be better. Like, this is nonpartisan. Like, it can't just be like, okay, this is our way, the highway, and that's done. And sorry about your issue, but we can't help you out. I guess just move or try and send them to a different school. Like,
Ms. Palmer, I don't want to interrupt, but there's 1 minute left.
okay. I just feel like this has been over politicized. Everyone has dug in their heels and no one is willing to compromise or find a bipartisan solution. I have sisters that live in Bucks County. Their kids go to school. It's optional. It's up to the parents. Some kids wear masks there. Some kids do not. I feel like that's kind of meeting us halfway. I feel like that's not a lot to ask. Just wear a mask if you want to wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear one. With all of this, the only ones negatively affected are the kids. When our children are older and we're out of this thing, they're going to look back and be like, what was that? People who are dying of this virus are people with pre-existing conditions, people who are older. I looked on your website and we're in the dead of winter. Enfield Elementary, 2 cases. Erdenheim Elementary, 2 cases.
Ms.
Middle
Palmer, that is
school,
time, excuse me.
1 case. High school, 1 case. That's enough to have a universal mask mandate? I was expecting to see like 300 cases, 150 cases,
Thank
people
you,
laid
Ms.
up in the
Palmer.
hospital.
Thank you so much. We want to
I really
maintain
want you to
fairness to everyone.
empathize with me. I really hope
I
that
understand.
this has made a difference and I could reach out and like, let's come up with something.
Thank you, Ms. Palmer.
Thank you.
Before we move to the next speaker, I do want to say 2 things. One, well, I forget what the first one was. The second one is the most important, to be honest with you. Ms. Palmer, you brought up a really important point, which is development of kids, and take that very seriously. Obviously, this is the main mandate of our district. So what I would like to do, excuse me, what I would like to do is ask Dr. Yannicone to address how exceptions are made for children with medical needs. We could talk about that. Excuse me, Ms. Dowling, please.
So we do have a policy that allows for an exemption to masking with a request with doctor's recommendation. We've had several students who've gone through that policy, that process, and have been provided accommodations. In addition to that, after our winter assessments, I asked Dr. Johnston to work with our primary school team of reading specialists, speech therapists, as well as our elementary administration to look at what, if any, other additional accommodations would be appropriate in specific settings for children with any kind of developmental delay. We've also consulted with the Office of Public Health on that request, and we will continue to do the very best that we can for every child in the district. And Mrs. Palmer, I will have Dr. Johnston, or a member of her team, contact you tomorrow to talk about your child specifically.
Okay, I'm sorry, we have a decorum for the meeting. We have a decorum for the meeting. Thank you. Sorry.
Next up is Stephen Hevron. If you could please just let us know where you live in the township.
Talk about masks. Along with some of the stuff that we heard from students earlier tonight, I wanted to share a personal story. I have a story I'd like to share about our school librarian. I reached out to her early in the year for guidance and help in finding more books for my daughter, a voracious reader, to discover. She was approachable, happy to engage with my daughter, helping her find even more age and reading level appropriate books, beyond what we were able to buy and what she was able to get from our local library, coaxing my daughter to try different books. Through reading, she has become more informed, well-rounded, enthusiastic, and engaged. Alongside the rest of the education she receives in our school, she is leaps and bounds ahead of where I was at her age in terms of social, creative, and emotional capabilities. My daughter found a book in the library written by a younger friend of hers. We learned that over winter break, her friend, with the help of her mother, had written and published a book she had started writing in school earlier in the year for a project. A copy of the book was shared with the librarian, who thoughtfully cataloged it and put it on the shelves with the rest of the books, where my daughter happily discovered it. I know she enjoyed it and shared her joy with the young author, and other students have also checked out those books. This is the kind of positive support and memory that will last and shape a young writer or reader for a lifetime. Keep on doing what you're doing. You have my support. Thank you.
Next up is Terry Hebner. If you could please just let us know where you live in the township.
One 121 Hawes Lane. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Terry Hebner, and I'm the parent of two recent Springfield graduates. I've lived in Springfield Township for over 20 years. I'd like to begin by thanking the board for following the science and continuing to require that masks be worn in schools. I realize that everyone is tired of the masks, but they do serve as a protection against the transmission of COVID. I wear a mask every day at work, but it really is a relatively minor inconvenience. I'm a teacher in a neighboring school district, and I can empathize with Springfield Township teachers who are not only doing their best to educate Springfield's youth, but are also maintaining a safer environment by enforcing proper mask wearing. Masks aside, there is much to be thankful for. Teachers and students have returned to face-to-face learning, and we know that's how kids learn best. But how did we get there? This board and many school boards around the county listened to the science. From the Montgomery County website posted just this last week, they state, and I quote, Montgomery County is currently experiencing a high level of community transmission, and mask wearing continues to be an effective strategy for minimizing the spread of COVID-19, particularly in settings in which individuals are not vaccinated. At this time, Montgomery County Office of Public Health encourages schools to continue to require mask wearing as recommended by the CDC, end quote. So despite the high level of transmission, we are headed in the right direction with increased vaccination rates. And to those that are frustrated by the changing recommendations, I say this: science is messy. Science reveals new information all the time. And armed with that new knowledge, we adjust. That's how science is supposed to work. I
Ms.
know
Hepner,
we all
1
can't,
minute left.
I know we all can't wait to return to whatever the new normal is, but I encourage you to continue to listen to the science, to only lift the mask mandate when the science warrants it, and not cave to those who are yelling to do it sooner. I believe I am in the majority when I say that we have supported your scientifically based decisions regarding masks thus far, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we move to our next commenters, I do want to ask everyone in a public attendance, do not interrupt. Please do not interrupt. Please do not interrupt speakers. It is very disrespectful. Secondly, there are multiple members of the public in attendance who are not wearing their masks. I'm going to respectfully ask you to put them on.
Can we ask above the noses as well? It's really not that hard this far into it.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Jeff Cornell. Please again, just let us know where you live in the district. And
1903 Surrey Road, Orland. The last board meeting, a healthcare professional spoke in support of universal masking in schools. She reflected on her experiences of coming home and having to decontaminate before contact with her family, just as I and so many others around the world had to do when we knew so little about this virus. She went on to say in reflection that we cannot make decisions that only impact ourselves, and embracing that lesson is not operating under the guise of fear, but of love. While in the early days of the pandemic, I shared that sentiment, I fail to see how it can be applied to the present day. 2 whole years later, with so much learned. I realize that this individual's opinion carries a lot of weight with this board, but I think that her statement is a perfect microcosm of what the problem is. We are masking our children to keep others safe. Others. Nowhere in the world has this been a pandemic that is killing and maiming large numbers of children. There are schools in this very state that are not requiring universal masking or reporting large numbers of hospitalizations or deaths, yet we will sacrifice our children's mental health and social emotional well-being to make others feel safe. Does anyone here know the long-term physical and mental impacts of long-term masking of children? Has anyone here not read an article about the rise of suicide and drug abuse in the young population? It's time to stop acting like we have learned nothing over the past 2 years. Protect the elderly and vulnerable through individual responsibility, not at the expense of a whole generation of children. I am aware that the board may lift the mask mandate in the near future, and I'm sure that there will be many parents that are upset by that and parents that will be relieved. I, for one, will continue to fight for our children until the power of this board to mandate masks or any other form of public health decision is removed or exposed as unlawful. A recent Pennsylvania Supreme Court opinion issued on December 23rd after striking down a statewide mask mandate should heed warning to anyone in the state who is relying on mandates to shield themselves from liability. One short statement from that opinion will tell you all you need to know. Quote, "It goes without saying that the Department of Health must carry out these duties within the constraints of the law and does not have carte blanche authority to impose whatever disease control measures the Department of Health sees fit to implement without regard for the procedures for promulgating rules and regulations expedited or otherwise," end quote. I would urge anyone watching this to read the opinion in its entirety. as it outlines the government overreach that we have experienced throughout this pandemic. We are no longer under a state emergency declaration, and Pennsylvania follows Dillon's rule, which means that local governments derive their powers from the state and only can exercise powers that the state specifically authorizes them to use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Thank you, Mr. Parsons. If you could put your mask on. Thank you. Okay, you've been asked politely. I would like you to put it on, or please leave the meeting. Would you like to call the police in again, Mr. Parsons? Okay, Mr. Parsons, I'm going to go ahead and put the meeting. We're just going to take a recess in the meeting in place until you depart.
Meeting's been reassessed. Yeah, the rules require masks.
So
Mr.
we'll
Bedard.
comment.
Okay. All right, everyone.
Mr. Bedard.
This isn't a public debate. This is a board meeting for us to actually do the business of the board.
I would like
So-
to make a motion that we go into virtual meeting.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion. Ms. Green, if you could take a vote on our ability to go to virtual. Does everyone want to move to virtual? If we can go through.
Go through a roll call.
Okay, and there was a second.
Please, fine, we're taking a vote. We're taking a vote. I'd like you to please. Okay, we're going to recess. We'll reconvene. We will reconvene virtually. And we will resume, we will resume public comment on the virtual meeting. How much time will we need? Okay. We'll be back. We'll be back to the virtual meeting. All right, hopefully everyone can hear me online. I do want to apologize for that disruption of the meeting. That is not a typical approach to our school board meetings. There were two reasons that we called recess and moved the meeting to fully virtual, just so that everyone online has the experience that we had in the room. First is multiple members of the public who were attending the meeting were refusing to wear masks after being politely and repeatedly asked to wear the mask in compliance with the school rules and regulations for being on school, being within the school building. The second reason for the quick, brief break in the meeting was consistent disruption from members of the public, both speaking over others who are trying to make valid public comment that we definitively want to hear, because we want to hear everyone from the community. But secondly, interrupting the business of the board and our responsibilities to help move the business of the district forward. And these meetings are intended to allow for a voice of the public, but also to get business done. So we wanted to make sure that we can actually hear the public comment. So we're going to jump right back into the agenda where we left off with our hybrid meeting, fully virtual, and go into our public comment section. Now, we do have quite a few hands raised. So in order to get to try and get through everyone that has their hands up, we're going to really stick to this 3-minute limit on all comments. And we want to hear from as many community members as possible. So in order to make sure that we get through everyone's comment, I have asked that our tech team actually turn off the microphone once Mr. Needleman has given you the 1-minute warning and then finally closed out the 3-minute time for your speaking. So please be knowledgeable that this is a 3-minute public comment period. And I appreciate everyone's patience as we kind of reconvened and get things going again. So with that, we can jump right back into public comment. Mr. Needleman.
Thanks, Mr. Bedard. Jumping back to our list of folks who are here, and then I'll go right to the online participants. Madeline Watson, you're up next. Ms. Watson. Ms. Watson? I don't hear or see Ms. Watson. Ms. Watson, indeed, if you are here with us, please let us know. Otherwise, I'll go down to the next name. Cindy Dowling. Ms. Dowling? Doesn't appear that Ms. Dowling is with us either. All right, moving on to the next name. It looks like Andrew Call. Mr. Call? It looks like you're muted.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Very good.
First, I wanted to say thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I also wanted to thank you very much for your service to the community and the absolutely impossible job that I'm sure you're doing. I do not envy you. However, I certainly do appreciate you. I wanted to say that I am.
Just let us know where you are in the township, please.
Oh, sorry. I'm in Orland on Lorraine Ave. So I just wanted to make a point that everything seems to be going pretty well in the school district with regards to masks because I believe everyone has been wearing masks this whole time. If you look at the numbers out of Florida yesterday, or the day before yesterday, rather, they had 79 pediatric hospitalizations while Pennsylvania only had 9. I think that keeping everybody masked is great. My daughter has a speech problem and sees a speech therapist there, and we've noticed a very marked improvement in her performance speaking. I think that in an effort to take care of other folks, it's very important for us all to wear masks. If we switch to it's up to the parents and half the kids are wearing masks and half the kids aren't wearing masks, I think you'll see a lot more transmission because that's how this works, right? We learned very early on that masks help you not spread it to other people. Wearing a mask is for other people, and the folks who don't want to wear masks run the risk of infecting other folks, and I think that that would be a crying shame. The last thing I want is to have to visit my children in an ICU because somebody's feelings were hurt for having to wear a mask. I listened to the numbers from the beginning of this meeting where people seem to be making the marks that they need to be making, at least at pre-pandemic levels. I don't see how masks are inhibiting anyone's education. It certainly seems like y'all are doing the right thing. And I think most of the people who haven't joined these meetings before, tonight is the first time that I've joined, are of that opinion. And I will certainly be joining more often and making that opinion known. I think it's very important that you keep the kids safe. It's part of your mandate. It's part of your mission statement. That's why we hired you. And I really, truly appreciate the work that you've done and the absolutely impossible situation that I'm sure you're in every time you have one of these meetings. Thank you very much for my time.
Thank you. Next is Kathy Wills. Ms. Wills, if you would let us know where you are in the township, please. Ms. Wills?
Hi, can you hear me?
You can.
Hi, this is Kathy Wills, and I actually live on St. Clair Road, and I was born and raised in Orland for 43 years, and I want to talk about the mask mandate. I did speak with you guys at the Finance Committee. When this pandemic started, I must say, I felt extremely confident in the district. I felt we were moving in the right direction, sending surveys to parents about in-person versus virtual, what kids wanted to take the bus versus car line. We had a choice as members of the community. My daughter has been coming home sick, headaches. She never missed a day in all the years, okay? I'm talking an 11-year-old, okay? I know the gentleman before wants to say that, you know, it's all about masks. Well, it is. They're affected by this, okay? And of course, where did the choice go as members of the community? We're paying the tax dollars, right? We can sit here tonight, talk about other things about the pandemic, just, you know, what hospitals, what nursing homes. I think we already all know this answer. The pandemic has been over. And I'm sure many of you have traveled to Florida, have gone on vacations. And even, I believe, DeFranco, you were at McGurk's on Saturday night, February 5th, with no mask, enjoying yourself. I'm just kind of curious why you just jumped up and ran out scared. What are you scared of? We are asking for a survey, and I brought this up at the Finance Committee. A survey asking the community to say mask optional or mask. If parents feel that they want to have their children wear masks, then bring in a K, whatever they're called, N95. Let them wear that to protect themselves, or maybe go virtual, because there was a survey on that, to go to the Montgomery County Learning Center, to go virtual if you're that scared 2 years later. I'm just speaking today because, to be honest with you, this does affect my child. And I'm sure it affects every other kid in this township. So with that said, let's figure this out. I don't want people to hate each other for this. This is not the way that we work in Springfield Township. 43 years, I have loved being in this township, and now I want to move. And I'm sure you're about to tell me that I have 1 minute left. Okay.
Actually, 10 seconds.
Or 10 seconds. This is something that we need to live with forever. These kids are not a threat to our community, and I will not stop, even though this ESS.
It's time.
Thank you, Ms. Wills.
Thank you. Next is Joan Parsons. Ms. Parsons, if you would tell us where you live in the township, please.
Yes, Orland. Can you hear?
We're ready. Yeah. Hi, Ms. Parsons.
Okay, hi, how are you? Okay, I know the last speaker was saying about the SSER. We're a pretty rich township. Why do we even have to accept that money? But that being said, what I would like to say, emotions are really high after 2+ years, and other states and other counties in Pennsylvania are optional masks. We know who they are. We know 31 counties. We know LaSalle. We know Souderton. And by the way, Souderton, at the finance meeting, you had information from them about the cybersecurity. So if you're asking Souderton for help on cybersecurity, why don't you ask them on their mask and why they went optional? That would absolutely be, I guess, would be a good thing to do since you're in touch with the Souderton district. Now, the other things I want to talk about is the Super Bowl. I know most of you, if not in the township, all watched the Super Bowl. How did you feel watching 65,000 people unmasked, all the super elites, the halftime show, all the big time mayors and all these people in the stands? They're all flashing them. They're all kissing one another. None of them have masks on. How do you think that makes our children feel and the parents of this township? Do you understand that Los Angeles has been masked and shut down, and California, and here we have a Super Bowl and everybody's happy drinking beer? Oh my God, who's going to win? Who isn't going to win? How much time do I have left?
Ms. Parsons, it's almost 1 minute left. 1 minute, 8 seconds.
Oh, good. Okay. So here we are. We got red states that open. We have blue states that don't open. We have Florida that's open. We have children in the hospital that could be for RSV. They could have had the flu.
They could have had an allergic reaction to something. We don't really know what the hospitalizations are for. We do know that the COVID tests are not accurate. And we also know that they were going to have tests that was going to distinguish between the flu and COVID. And that you don't even hear about anymore because I guess they found out that a lot of the kids probably had the flu. So that was put on the back burner with Fauci or whomever. But emotions are really high. Down in Virginia, in Souderton, and in other districts across the United States, the parents are in an uprise. We don't want to be in an uprise. We want you to do the right thing. You already know the right thing is to go optional. You just won't make that move. And yes, emotions are really high. But what about the children?
Thank you, Mrs. Parsons.
Thank you. Next is Faye McGorry. Hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, it's Faye. My main concern is
If you would,
the
please,
middle
Tell us where you live in the township, please.
Flower Town. Middle school, the fighting. There is zero supervision in the hallways. There's 2 security guards apparently in the lunchroom, and they don't break up the fights. I don't care about the mask. That's the last battle I'm going to pick. The fighting needs to stop, and there's also no repercussions. These kids get suspended for 3 days, and they put all over social media, I still have my phone. Let's start going after the parents that are not raising these children. I've raised my daughter to follow rules and regulations, to do well. Do not come home to this house unless you have a 90. You are to excel in life. Springfield is supposed to be a great school. My mother's a teacher in North Philly. I might as well send her down to North Philly with my mother. This has to be addressed. Has to be. I don't know if the leadership in the middle school, because they seem to have the most trouble, is poor. It needs to be addressed. My daughter is in your care for 6.5 hours, if not more. It needs to be addressed because something cannot happen to my child or the other children. And I'm sure you guys are on the same page with me. So can we please get something going on with more supervision and more repercussions, or going after the parents that refuse to raise their children? It's becoming too much. I'm tired of seeing videos. And then the racial slurs, I'm going to go kill this N because he punched him in the lip. And then Mr. Fuller saying, you can't post anything. Let me tell you, Mrs. Yannicone has done a great job with my conflict of dealing with Mr. Fuller. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to her. But he still hasn't learned conflict resolution because these kids are still doing what they're doing. That's it. I'm finished. But it needs to be resolved because I'm going to the state rep next.
Thank you, Ms. McGorry.
Up next is Kelly Kane. Kelly Kane?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So I want to do, what's that?
Please just tell us where you live in the town.
Oh, absolutely. So I am Kelly King. I'm a parent of 2 and I live in Orland. I wanted to applaud the board for their consistent calm and professionalism today in face of persistent disruptions from members of our school community. I'm actually sitting in the parking lot right now watching a police protected board meeting due to the 5 or so members of our community audience calling out, yelling, refusing to mask, and refuting all of the hard work of our board and school leaders. In person, the police had to be called to the meeting at least 2 times due to the behavior of audience members. These people made a conscious choice to behave in such a manner in front of children who were present at this meeting and refused repeated reminders and pleas from the board and police to maintain decorum. It is very clear to me that the board is desperately trying to hear all community voices. The act at today's board meeting was planned and deliberate. While in person, before the meeting even started, I witnessed a community member discuss via phone his plan to, quote, be kicked out of this meeting. He was escorted out by police only to return and engage in the same behavior. The meeting closed abruptly, which is now reopened, thank you, at which time members of this group stood by the door, including a woman who blocked the doorway and very intentionally coughed in my face without a mask on. We have adults in community meetings engaging in assaultive behaviors and working against their very own attempts at being heard by this board. I've attended these meetings virtual for over 2 years. Today's performance was an absolute disgrace. To the board, I apologize on behalf of these people. Their voices may be the most disruptive, but they are not representative of all of the Springfield community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Kane.
Next is Catrice Maltherin. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name.
No, you pronounce it fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Where you live in the township, please.
Yes, thanks for allowing me to speak. My name is Catrice Matherin. I live in Orland. First, I wanted to speak about the mask very briefly. The majority of township residents chose what we wanted during the last election. The health and safety plan was discussed and voted on in the last meeting that I attended. And what I heard was that we do have an exit strategy, that when transmission rates in the community are reported for 2 consecutive weeks to be moderate or low, that is our exit strategy. And I just wanted to point that out to anyone who is concerned about whether or not our children will be wearing masks forever. They won't. Thank you to the board for considering community transmission in your decision. I actually wanted to speak in support of the Equity Action Plan. I've had the privilege of sitting in on some of those meetings, and I wanted to thank the administration and the community members who participated. I wanted to thank you for making sure that we can have better outcomes for all children by making sure that the opportunities that are accessible to them are appropriate for every child as much as is possible, so that we can make sure that the children's outcomes are not predetermined by their level of access to the services and supports that they can get. And so their drive and their aptitude and their curiosity can take them wherever it is that they can go. Our community is fortunate and wise to consider whether opportunities for education are equitable in our district. And I'm thankful that I and my children are here because of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Etlin is next. Mr. Etlin, please tell us where you live in the township.
Hi, yes, good evening. Jim Etlin, Orland, Pennsylvania. First, I want to thank the board for following the guidance of the scientists and the medical professionals. I'm sure when guidance from the Montgomery County Office of Public Health changes, the board will take the revised guidance into consideration and make a revision to its mask mandate. Secondly, I want to echo the sentiments of one of the community members that spoke with regards to the board's professionalism and composure during what I'm quite sure was a trying time. Unfortunately, there are members of our community who are not demonstrating themselves with Spartan pride. I would just like to make a suggestion and a recommendation that that the Springfield Township Police Department be present during future board meetings to prevent disruptions from occurring in the future. So this way, those members of the public who choose to conduct themselves professionally and adhere to the guidance that our elected officials have set forth can attend a meeting in person and without having to deal with disruptive members of the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Etlin. Next is Joseph Dowling. Mr. Dowling, please tell us where you live in the township.
This is actually Cindy,
Very good.
Cindy Dowling, and I live in Winmore.
Hi, Cindy.
I couldn't get home in time to get on when you were calling my name, apparently, so I apologize for that. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Sorry. All right. So the reason that, well, what I wanted to talk about tonight was obviously the mask issue again. yes, I know that you guys have a plan in place. However, I think the numbers are ridiculously low that you want. And also my fear is that you're going to say, okay, they're off. And then here they go back on again. And I don't want to be on a yo-yo with my children. I want to know that my kids, once those masks come off, they're going to stay off. I want the community to know that that they shouldn't feel isolated and alone if they have a desire to not want their child to be masked. There are many of us in the community who are Democrat, Republican, different colors, different religions, moms, dads, children. We just want our freedoms back. We should not be censored, bullied, or demonized, as even people tonight are saying that we were disruptive and I mean, maybe there were some people that were disruptive, but not all of us were. At the end, all I was asking is if I could have a chance, if I was going to have a chance to speak, which luckily now I'm getting. I'd like the school board and anyone out there who is so pro-mask right now to try putting yourself in our shoes. Like, imagine your child having to go to school every day without a mask on. No masks allowed. There's no option. Your child cannot wear a mask. They will be breathing in that fresh air around all those people that are not masked also. And imagine how you'd feel. Like, what would it feel like for you right now to have no option? Your kid has to go to school without a mask. Can you imagine that? The fear that you guys would have? That's what we feel, you know. If I know my daughter gets sick from wearing a mask, and I want the option to say, no, she doesn't have to wear one. And you to say tonight that we have this, oh, you can get a medical exemption. There's 2 in the entire school district. That poor woman was in there so sad about her child who has autism and his ability to be able to communicate and speak and oh, well, we have these options. It is so hard to get an exemption in our school district. And not only that, when you get it, you have to wear a face shield or sit behind the plastic screens that you guys are all sitting in front of. And if you guys think those plastic divisions are working for you, I don't understand. I mean, it kind of, I'm sorry to say it looks a little ridiculous. But we feel unheard. A survey would be nice, but I don't even know if you'd follow the survey at this point. We should have the option as parents. We should choose what our children are putting on their faces.
This time, Mrs. Allen.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Up next is Mary Ellen Reeves.
Hi, good evening. I think that this is just Mary Ellen Reeves, 214 Station Avenue.
Thank you.
I mean, listen, look, I know the Sunshine Laws. You're not required to answer any questions, but don't you think by addressing this would have goodwill in the community? But look at all these people that are speaking out for their children. I mean, pro-mask is silly. You guys all know it. We know it. Stop the partisan politics. Stop the scare tactics. There are no rise in COVID admissions to hospitals for children. Children are suffering. They're suffering under this. Why? Look, if you're so bought into masks, let's have a real survey. Let's have a real survey that says who wants masks and who doesn't. Let's address it. I know that there is a particular set of communications that you had that, you have a community health, whatever, in place. But look at the number of people coming out and saying they don't want their children to be masked. All over the country, they're lifting mask mandates in the most blue of states. Why? Why can we not address this in a professional, calm manner? Yes, there's different opinions. This is not a partisan issue. Why cannot we not address this as a community? Let's all come together and understand the real dangers. Because, if we follow the science, the dangers are not there. If your child has an autoimmune disease, yes, let's make sure that child is properly fitted with a KN95 mask.
Ms.
Look
Reeves,
at the
that is 1
people
minute.
just calling
1 minute.
out to you. Yes, yes, thank you. Look at the people begging you for your help. I really just implore the board to listen to the people that have elected you to do the job that they've asked you to do. So all I'm asking is you please listen, please reconsider. Let's not make this an angry issue. Let's make this something that we could all come together and agree about. Because you know what? This is not about you. This is not about me. These are about the children that are going to be the future leaders of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reeves. Next up is Angelina Banks. Ms. Banks? If you would.
Hi, Angelina Banks, Winmore. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're here.
All right,
Thank you, Ms.
awesome. So I think back in December or November, I made a comment and I made a request regarding indecent material in the library, specifically for parental commission to go in and independently review the books in the library and or teachers' classrooms for content that may not be age appropriate for students. I have not heard back from that. I'm specifically talking about books with illustrations of minors filleting other people and engaging in sexual acts that may be incestual or non-consensual. And in your policies for internet use on your computers, you have the federal law of child pornography, which is any visual depiction, including photograph, film, video, picture, computer or computer-generated image or picture, whether made or produced by electronic, mechanical, or other means of sexually explicit conduct. 1, the product of such visual depiction involves the use of a minor engaging in sexually explicit conduct. That book obviously has the definition of child pornography. And for the school board and for community members to say that this smut is necessary for the development and the individual experience of a child going through a gender identity crisis really cheapens that experience for the student, for the person. Gender identity crises are more than just sexual encounters, and explicit depictions of sexual encounters are never going to be helpful. Premature exposure to pornography has been noted to increase sexual abuse, accepting it and inflicting it on others,
Ms. Banks, 1
increases, thank you, increases risky sexual behavior, and also leads to drug use and other mental health issues. So again, I invite the school board to have a parental council to review some of this stuff in our libraries. Secondly, masks. I know it's been heavy tonight. We have mask mandates being lifted all around us. The Archdiocese of Philadelphia has lifted their mask mandate, where the positivity rates in Philadelphia are much higher than Montgomery County. So I'm trying to figure out what science they're following that we're not following. Surgical masks for a sterile setting to protect the person being operated on from spittle and other debris from the person who is operating on them. KN95 mask, respirator, one way, protects the wearer only, degrades after 2 to 4 hours of use. This is mask theater. The CDC already came out and said that cloth masks are not effective. They're
Thank you, Ms. Banks. And I'm going to ask the administration to follow up directly on the submission for review of materials. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and certainly want to make sure that is addressed if you've submitted that. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate it.
Mr. Bedard, I do not see any more hands raised online, and we've reached the end of our participation list on the non-agenda items.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we do have another hand that came up. I just want to, in the spirit of inclusion.
Oh, forgive me, Murphy, excuse me.
And this will be the final comment for the evening.
Mr. Murphy, if you could just tell us where you live in the township, please.
Yeah, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. There's a little bit of feedback. We'll try and make it.
Okay, hold on one second. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Mark Murphy, Orland. I have a first grader that's been negatively affected by these decisions over the past 2 years. Just wanted to point out some additional hypocrisy. We had to drop off something at school for our son the other week, and in the administrative office, everybody in there had their mask around their chins, talking, including a teacher, mask around their chin, talking. So please explain that. So thank you to the person that earlier had stated that a board member out enjoying themselves at McGurk's with their mask off, who's now telling people to put it over their nose. The hypocrisy has to stop. This is political theater. I have a son that has speech delays that needs to see people's mouths. So these political theaters antics need to stop. I mean, this whole trust the science stuff, if you don't know that everyday masks, like the last woman who spoke, know that they don't work, then you either have your head in the sand or you're politically crazed, because even CNN's quote unquote experts are coming out and saying that the masks don't work. So I don't know what science there is that we're supposed to be following. So it's pretty simple. If you want to mask your kids, do it. If you want to mask, go to school with masks, go sleep with masks, drive with masks, go ahead and do it. But please leave us the decision to mask our kids if we don't want to. Enough with the political theater. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. All right, that will conclude public comment on non-agenda items. I need to find my actual agenda. And then we're going to close out the meeting with opportunity for board members and Dr. Yana Cohn to speak, but let me make sure I finish. I apologize, there's a lot on tonight's agenda. We will do future, we'll just do some updates on future meetings, and then we'll close out with comments again. First, future board meetings. We have an interim board meeting coming up on Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. This will be hybrid. This is tentatively scheduled, so it may be subject to change. That will be advertised and publicized. Second, regular board meeting on Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. That is a hybrid meeting. All will be held in the Freeze Memorial Lobby located here in the high school. Second, future committee meeting dates. Looks like we have a policy committee meeting again on Thursday, February 24th, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. to continue the incredible work you guys are doing to review each and every one of those policies. Second, academic affairs committee meeting on Monday, April 25th, 2022. So before closing out the meeting, I do want to open up the floor to Dr. Yana Cohn. If there's anything that you want to comment on at the close of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bedard. Thank you to the members of the board. I want to thank all the members of the public who were able to provide comment tonight. I want to let you know that I've taken some notes, and either myself or a member of the administrative team, when questions arose, we will get back to you by the end of this week. Ideally tomorrow, but by the end of this week, we will make sure that you have outreach from a member of the administrative team to get answers to your questions. And in addition to that, on a positive note, I want to let you know that I got notice from Dr. Rittenhouse that while we've been holding this meeting, our boys wrestling team, our co-ed wrestling team, let me correct myself, our co-ed wrestling team won the Suburban 1 League champs. So very nice. Congratulations to the members of the team and their coach and staff.
For comments on any topics this evening that you heard or anything else?
Can I say just?
Please go.
I want to say just one thing, and I don't want to make a long meeting even longer. I do just want to thank everybody up here. Obviously, we had some disruption tonight, and things were a little bit chaotic, but I want to thank Mr. Bedard, Dr. Yana Cohn, all the members of the board for their leadership. We had to take a recess, but the important thing is everybody who wanted to speak, who was a member of the public, got an opportunity to speak. And to Mr. Bedard's point earlier, we completed all the business we had to complete today. So for that, I just want to thank everybody, and I think I'm patting everyone on the back, metaphorically anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I did have the pleasure of supporting one of our community organizations at a restaurant in a neighboring town over the weekend. And as I normally don't wear a mask in restaurants, of course, I wasn't wearing a mask, but I was pleased to support this local community organization. And I'll continue to do those things as a fully vaccinated adult who can make those decisions. And obviously, that's a completely different scenario when you're with other adults in a bar or a restaurant than when you're discussing children in school. As a board member, I don't have that luxury with the schools. But anyway, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Very good.
Wanted to comment on the really good scores that we earned in the academic report. I'm very encouraged by those scores, then also encouraged by knowing that the principals will work hard in their individual buildings at making sure we're closing any of the gaps that still exist. And so we're doing a really good job with our academics, and it was good to hear that. And I'm equally as thrilled because I am very much into the arts and athletics. And so to see our children here, our students in this school district attend the school board meeting and be able to give them congratulations and let them know how proud we are of them. This is the kind of district that we definitely want to be in. And I enjoy volunteering in this district because we are concerned about the whole child. And so even we're in the midst of the pandemic, but I see children still thriving in the Springfield School District. And I just want to say thank you to the administration for doing such a great job. Thank you.
I also would like to make a really brief closing comment. I appreciate all the public comments here, but I really want to encourage folks to come to committees that are appropriate for the topic of the committee. But by the time we get to this meeting, it really is a business meeting. We're making decisions. And so it's not that we don't want to engage with the public. But I just want to really invite folks to bring the energy into the appropriate committee meetings where there's more space for conversation versus bringing it into our business meeting where we're trying to stay on agenda and task. And so just want to thank Mr. Bedard and Mr. Needleman for keeping us on task and for managing the meeting this evening and moving us along. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'd like to also share the same sentiment of Ms. Green in terms of complimenting the administrative team with all the wonderful progress academically for our students that really demonstrate the hard work that the administrative team and everyone is doing for our young people. And secondly, I'd like to also commend the policy committee for all their hard work going through the policies, not only the first round, but the second go round. So kudos to all of you and thank you.
Any other comments? All right, then it's on me for the official agenda, which is closing comment. And I just want to say, there's two things that came up in public comment today I think are really helpful to underscore. The first, and I'm blanking on exactly who said this, but the comment was, boy, it seems like this is an impossible job. And while I appreciate that sentiment, I want to say that this is an incredibly important and wonderful job to serve the school district and our students. I'm actually thrilled that we have such an engaged community. And I appreciate when community members come to our meetings, engage in dialogue. The second comment was from Ms. Reeves, and I'll remember this one because Ms. Reeves is a very engaged member of our community and does participate in dialogue. And she underscored the need for us to have civil dialogue and make sure that we're able to hear one another. And it is our intention and our desire to hear every member of our community who wants to come and speak with civility. And so I would encourage us in future meetings to just make sure that we're underscoring that in the spirit of we're here to serve, we're here to help our kids and help them thrive. And part of that is making sure that we're setting the right example for the kids that rely on us to weigh very difficult decisions, to come together as a community and move forward in even the toughest of times. So I do appreciate everyone, your engagement, and it is another reminder that we live in an incredible community, and I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. So with that, we will adjourn our regular board meeting from February 15th, 2022. Thank you everyone for logging in.